Today, I would like to ask you to embark with me on the relationship called the Titanic. Let's see why the Titanic often hits the iceberg of relationship and what happens or has happened in your relationships in the past. So let's have a look at relationships. Your relationships from the past or your current one. And see if you can follow the following picture. Imagine a courtroom and a judge is presiding. Opposite to this judge on one side is seated the victim of a hideous crime, the victim being present in this court of law. And opposite to this judge on the other side is seated the suspect, the supposed felon that may have committed a hideous crime against the victim present. Can you paint the picture? And the victim is allowed to speak up first, telling the story about what has happened in recent past. How much hurt was caused, how much damage, how much physical and mental damage, how the victim is marked for life with physical scars or mental ones. See if you can envision a victim like this in this court of law, talking to the judge, accusing the supposed felon. Now I would like to ask you the following questions. What do you think that the victim needs to get some kind of relief? What do you think the victim will ask the judge to do? And what is the purpose of this victim telling this story about what has happened? Do you have any clue? Let me tell you. It's about punishment. The victim wants punishment. The victim wants the felon to be punished as severely as possible. The victim wants retribution for what has been done to the victim. And only then the victim will feel some kind of relief. On the other side of the courtroom, we have the alleged felon. A felon that has a feeling that this felon has done something very wrong, something very bad. And the felon feels very bad about this. The felon feels remorse. Can you see this felon sitting there in this court of law? Head down, feeling bad. Hiding the face out of shame and guilt for what the felon supposedly has done wrong. What do you think this felon with remorse really needs to feel better? What would relieve these feelings of remorse, shame, and guilt? Again, let me tell you, it's about forgiveness. The felon with remorse would very much like to be forgiven. The felon with remorse would very much like to hear from its victim that it is okay, forgiveness. And if the felon with remorse gets punishment, that at least this punishment, this sentence, will lead to some kind of a relief, some kind of a forgiveness for this supposed crime. So we have two conflicting interests. The victim wants retribution, and the felon with remorse wants forgiveness. wants to be released from the burden of guilt. Okay, now let's leave this courtroom for a moment and imagine the following. Relationships. A bond between two people, and when this bond emerges as a result of childhood trauma, often one of these partners carries around the energy of a victim, an energy built up from the past, mainly childhood's past. The victim type is helpless, sad, vulnerable, not easy to satisfy, complaining, always looking for support since they cannot deal with their issues themselves, always blaming the outside world for their anger, sadness, and loneliness. And often the anger and helpless energy of the victim has to do with childhood trauma, physical, mental, or sexual abuse, bullying by parents or others, not feeling worthy as a child, suppressed, made powerless, silenced, ridiculed, not getting enough proper attention in a positive way, not receiving enough validation or appreciation, not receiving enough safety. And the other partner carries around the energy of Felon with remorse type, an energy built up as well from the past, mainly childhood's past. And this Felon with remorse type feels a lot of guilt, takes upon him or herself a lot of responsibilities, feels responsible for the happiness of the victim and other people around. The Felon tries to avoid emotional confrontations, especially when these confrontations are about not being good enough. The Felon with remorse tries to stay calm and gentle, everything to keep the victim satisfied. Because they believe this way, the victim will love them and give them forgiveness for whatever they have done wrong in the past during their childhood. Often the guilt of a Felon with remorse has to do with childhood as well. A little child trying to satisfy one or both parents. A little child sensing unhappiness with its parents and trying to do everything to make them happy and to feel safe themselves. They become a little child with a huge sense of responsibility, sometimes even becoming the child parent for one or both parents with victim type energy. A little child longing for love and emotional connection with its parents. And the child did not succeed. It has not received the love it needed so much. And the Felon child started to blame itself, and hence the guilt, the shame, the remorse, and hence the Felon with remorse was born. Okay, fast forward to adult life. A victim type and a Felon with remorse type join to form a relationship. Can you understand? Can you see why they felt attracted to each other? The victim always looking for a Felon with remorse to be punished, to make something right from the past. The Felon with remorse always looking for a victim that can bring forgiveness to make up something from the past. The Felon with remorse always looking out for someone to be satisfied, help, rescued, healed, pleased. I often call this the damsel in distress syndrome. Always looking out for a damsel in distress to be saved from the claws of unhappiness. And both victim and felon with remorse, they are craving for an opportunity to make right what went wrong in childhood past. And here we are in adult life, in this relationship. Another chance, another try, another dance leading to another goodbye in the end. Can you see that a relationship like this is a bond forged from the vapors coming out of the humid cellars of past pain? Pain coming from past childhood trauma, from both victim and felon with remorse. And can a bond forged from the fires of pain ever lead to a bond of true love? Well, maybe. Maybe if both partners recognize what is going on and are willing to both heal their past, which is often not the case, because they are not aware. They are not aware of the forces of the past that determine their present and their expectations and worries for the future. If you look at your relationships, current or old ones, and they were or are not so satisfying, bringing you frustration, bitterness, anger, can you recognize this pattern of the victim and the felon with remorse? And if so, which one is you? Are you the victim hoping for revenge? Or are you the felon with remorse picking up these victims, hoping for forgiveness? Now imagine the following picture. The victim and the felon with remorse are sitting on a seesaw, which represents their relationship. At the beginning of the relationship, the felon is the one in command, the one with confidence, the one that takes the lead. So the felon with remorse is sitting on the high position of the seesaw. He's the top dog, or she's the top dog, the one in control, or at least the one with initiative. The initiative the victim has not, being a powerless being. And the victim is the one sitting on the low position of the seesaw, the underdog. A position that does not feel nice. A position that feels out of control, because from the felon position, the felon looks down on the victim. And nobody wants to feel disempowered like the underdog. So the victim, with the agenda of wanting punishment and retribution, will start to look for a way to change the balance of the seesaw. But the victim has to be patient, since the felon is the one with the power and control. Like a little child has to submit to the power and control of parents, teachers, society. Do as you are told and shut up. So the victim will be patient, waiting for the right moment to overthrow the top dog position. And in the meantime, the victim will demand a lot of appreciation, attention, comforting, acknowledgement, fulfillment. And the victim will ask this from the felon. And the felon sitting on the top dog position is also not completely comfortable, because it feels remorse somehow. Remorse, shame, and guilt. Not exactly knowing what has been done wrong in the past. but the nagging feeling, it's there. So the felon with remorse, with the agenda, looking for forgiveness, will do its utmost best to please and to satisfy the victim. Everything to receive forgiveness. Everything to make the felon be released from its burden. But, as we saw, this is not the energetically hidden agenda of the victim. The victim wants retribution. So the victim will never be satisfied because it doesn't serve the agenda of the victim. It will never be enough because it does not serve the agenda of the victim. And in the end, the felon feels desperate. The felon with remorse tried everything to make the victim happy, like it tried to make its parents happy in the past. And it didn't work. It cannot work in this situation because of these different agendas. So what happens next? The felon will start to invite the victim to punish the felon. Punish the felon by being the source of frustration, of anger, of sadness, of loneliness, of dissatisfaction of the victim. And the victim that has waited patiently sees its chance for punishment of the felon with remorse. And the felon with remorse grasps the last straw of receiving forgiveness by being punished for a crime the felon did not commit. So eventually, the victim changes the balance of the seesaw and becomes the felon. And the felon with remorse agrees to change the balance of the seesaw and becomes the victim energy. Which of course is the beginning of the end of this relationship. The beginning of the end of this relationship between the victim and the felon with remorse. Which is in the end a relationship between two wounded child energies, wounded by their past, working it out in the present. Only to start a similar relationship again in the near future. And it will go on and on until this pattern is recognized and the wounded child energy inside is healed. And the victim stops looking for retribution and learns to comfort itself to heal all childhood wounds. And the felon with remorse stops looking for forgiveness and learns to forgive itself by realizing that actually no crimes were ever committed. I like to end this lecture with a little poem that I wrote about this subject, which is called Seesaw Them Come and Go. Sitting on the seesaw near the seashore, ocean view, feeling seasick though. Due to going high and low, the affection of her past grasping claw, the old-fashioned foe. The victim and him, felon gasping, filled by the gallon with guilt and sin. The victim urges retribution, detention to feel safe. The felon longs for lifetime redemption, exemption from blame and shame he gave himself. The velvet game of pushing and pulling we call human attraction. Who are we fooling? Seduction leading to toxic connection, deep dissatisfaction, lever to a never-ending story up and down. Leaving her sitting on this seesaw by the seashore, feeling seasick, ocean view, emotions flew. gore on the floor, the puncher and the receiver in their face it blew up and down, until they fall exhausted on the lawn, bruised and sore, exit sneaky via backstage door, preparing for another unhealthy dawn, according to the law of painful past attraction, until we are done